man, I've missed everybody. You're like, how could you miss us? Hey, when we all communicate right back and forth, I miss you. You know, my love language is words, communication. I know you're so surprised about that. Anyways, welcome back. This is Balcony Chat number 36. Wow. Anyways, the series on the names of God, I'm so excited about. I knew, like, actually in the beginning of October, that's where I would be going when we finished the forgiveness, because I thought, gotta get this forgiveness stuff settled, but boy, we need this next one just as much, and I hope that it ends up being as life impacting as the other was. But before we get into the names of God, I've just got a nugget I've got to share. You know, those of us who are reading through the Bible again this year, you know, what I love about rereading and reading through the whole Bible again is the chance to come upon stuff that is new. When you know you already read it last year, how did that not, was that really in there? So the other day I'm reading in Genesis 8, and some of you are with me, and come upon Noah, and, you know, the flood, and everybody gets on the ark, and then it says, and then the rain stopped, and the boat settled in Mount Ararat, and it said the waters receded. Well, then it said they stayed another 150 days, and then the list goes on and on, 150, and then there was 75 more, then there's 40 more, and there was 7 and 7 in the 2 weeks, and then 60 more, and I'm like, okay, can we get off this ark? Well, as I was saying that, as I was totaling up how long they were sitting there, how long they were in the ark, 379 days. We thought 2020 was hard. Wow, 379. Well, then there's a point where today, you know, week after week, 2 months more, then it says, and then God spoke to Noah and said, it's time to leave now. It's time to go forward, be fruitful, walk in your purpose. And I started thinking of all the people who go through the excruciating pain of waiting for what they want to do for God or do, period. I mean, they're in agony. And I thought, Noah is an example of the requirement of great fruitfulness and impact is preceded by excruciating waiting. So if you've been waiting for something and it hasn't happened yet, what is amazing is to think that God acts on behalf of those who wait for him. Isaiah 64:4. Whether it's Noah, whether it's you, whether it's me. Now to get to the names of God, and the first one we're going to look at is Elohim. And the reason we're starting with Elohim is actually the first word in the first verse, in the first chapter of the Bible, and most of you know the verse, in the beginning God. And that word God is Elohim. Elohim is a plural word because it's 2 parts to it, plural, but it's used with singular verbs. So even though it's a hint of the Trinity, we're in Genesis 1:26, it says, let us make man in our image, we, plural. There's the Trinity, 3 in 1. The Trinity is actually manifested in the New Testament. Some of you already know where that is, but for those who are curious, Matthew 3:16 and 17. The Trinity was experienced by John the Baptist during the baptism of Jesus Christ. If you've not noticed that before, check it out, Matthew 3:16 and 17. So Elohim, a plural Hebrew word for God. El means God, but Ohim has to do with strength and creating, because it says, in the beginning God created. Any discussion of that? Who created this world? In the beginning God. Well, as I was thinking about Elohim and in the beginning God, I started thinking about those 4 words, in the beginning God. They actually are foundation for our whole spiritual walk, our whole Christian life. And people who cannot handle in the beginning God will have a hard time handling the rest of the Bible. But if you can accept that, it begins with God, it ends with God, those 4 words, the rest of the Bible will not be quite the challenge. But as I was pondering that, thinking about Elohim, well, then I found this verse. In fact, when I looked it up, I thought, I probably should lead with it, even though I feel like it'll just sidetrack you. Some of you are like, where is she going? Just listen to this verse. For your promises are backed by all the honor of your name. Well, you know, people always talking about the Bible being full of promises, and, you know, they got to learn the promises of God. Why wouldn't it be better to, like, let's start learning who God is, who made those promises. So that's why I'm so excited about doing the names of God, because the more you look deeply into his character and his heart and his name, then the more when you read a promise of God, you're like, yep, I know who's going to fulfill that promise. I believe it'll be El Shaddai. Oh, I believe it's going to be El Elyon, which is all we can learn. And so over the years, I've always noticed, like, I have this confidence, you know, if God said it, I believe it, you know, his word, and I just stand on the promises. And I thought, why have people so struggled with that? And I thought, very early I learned a lot about the names of God. I would notice the different things that they would name a place because of something that God has done. I was learning that stuff like in the 70s. Then I did serious study in the 80s. And here we are in 2021 doing it again. So Elohim, in the beginning God. Before we get past these 4 words, I just want to give you a little side thought. Do you know that in the beginning God was assaulted by the evolutionary theory? When Darwin said that in the beginning was not God, that was an assault on Elohim. When people debate Darwinism, evolutionary theories, even theistic evolution, it is an assault on Elohim. But I thought about another assault. You know, when you have you ever heard a woman putting down herself like, oh, I have the biggest thighs, I don't like the shape of my eyes, she puts down her structural, the way she was made. Well, what she doesn't even know when she's doing that, when you insult it, you're insulting the image bearer, because we are made in his image, Genesis 1:26, but also the creator, Elohim. Why'd you make me this way? I heard someone say, I got more the build of a football player than a ballerina. Yeah, that's true of some people, but that is how God designed you, and the design of the purpose and his fulfillment for your life is all wrapped around that design. Very intricate, very significant. But I have 4 more words to look at, and we're going to be moving on. I'm going to show you some more details about Elohim. Okay, in the beginning, Genesis 1:1, 4 words, in the beginning, God. 2 chapters later, 4 words, where sin entered the world, hath God really said. 4 words. Say it. Did God really say? Challenged, hath God really said. Do you realize the first sin will be the last sin? And every time you hear people put down the Bible and doubt the Bible and criticize the Bible, you look at them like, nothing new under the sun. Hath God really said? Started then, continues, it'll actually be the last sin. In fact, the last chapter of the Bible talks about don't add to the word, don't take away from the word, but then I come back to the names of God again. Confidence in God's word has to do with confidence in God. And the clearer your view of God is, the more confidence you have when you read his word and read his promises and read the hope he promised. And I've watched people, they're reading the same passage I am and they're not getting what I'm getting, and I'm like, they got a distorted concept of God. And actually, we're going to go from this series into the distorted concept, because too many of us, our concept of God is more via the view of our parents, the original authority in our life. We think that's how God is. That's why I think so many people see God as a finger-pointing God rather than an arms wide open to embrace you, Deuteronomy 33:12 God. Come to Papa. See that distortion? So hopefully this Names of God series is going to help with some of that. Something else I noticed when I was studying the names of God, Elohim, is how many times the prophets would refer to God, Elohim. They would refer to him. When they would talk about him, they'd have to go into the maker of heaven and earth. And we're like, yes, we know he's the maker of heaven and earth. But it's pretty elaborate. And so I was trying to look up all the names. I was telling Ken, there's no way I can get through all these examples. But the best part for me was to realize, before I did this series, I kept noticing Isaiah, Zechariah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, all of them, constantly the reference of God as creator of heaven and earth. The Psalms, creator of heaven and earth. And I thought, I love this. This is one of my favorite remarks about God as creator. And some of you, is probably one of your favorites too. And it has the reference of the commander of 1,000,000 stars. That's one of my favorite things that God has taught me, that you can trust the commander of 1,000,000 stars. Isaiah 40 verse 26. Lift your eyes and look to the heavens. Who created all these? When you look at the stars in the sky, do you pause and just thank Elohim? Do you say, bravo, Elohim? Bravo, Papa God? Anyways, who created all these things? He who brings out the starry host one by one and calls them each by name. Wait. He brings them out, the starry host, and calls them name by name. Okay, today I looked up that in our galaxy alone, called the Milky Way, there's 200 billion stars. Now, honestly, I want to know who did the counting. Did you do this by measuring dots and those telescopes that go Hubble, like at the end of the universe? I mean, it's amazing. But the best part, when I read it, I thought, I belong to the commander of those stars. But then it says, And he calls them each by name because of his great power and mighty strength. Not one of them is missing. And I think about shooting stars, falling stars. He knows what's going on. And it cracks me up that humans they name stars. They want to name it after someone special, name it after a child, name it after a fiance. Oh, I'm going to name this star. I'm naming it after you. Excuse me. You know, I feel like heaven's balcony's going, hey, they've already got names. You should talk to the one that named them. Okay, so the commander of a million stars. Oh, and did you know that Elohim, this is amazing, in the book of Job, Elohim is referred to 40 times. 40! One of the comments by Job 35:10. But no one says, where is God, my maker? I mean, it's like they know who made him. I don't know how this intelligent generation that is in this century doesn't know who made them. Like, really? Okay, now, it's okay. Remember, it begins with God, ends with God. Sin began with a lie and ends with a lie. So ponder the lies we believe when we don't believe that in the beginning God. Something to ponder. Okay, so, bravo Elohim. Well, I was looking for a verse in the New Testament because it's not transliterated. It's not like from Hebrew, but it's done in the creative mode. You know, God creator, God created, because it's Greek. But I found this passage, I thought, whoa! And it's, of course, one of my favorite. You know, here's the apostles, they're in prison, they let them out. So here comes Peter and John, they gather with the other believers, and they're so happy they got out of jail. Yahoo, God got them out. Yahoo, God got them out. And it says, then they began to break into prayer and worship. And they said, oh, sovereign Lord, I love this phrase. He said, creator of heaven and earth. So when they're busting it out, so excited and praising God, it says, you. In fact, they say, sovereign Lord, you made heaven and earth. Well, why do they have to even say that? Everybody already knows that. No, they declared when they were worshiping God that you made heaven and earth. Now I'm more concerned that when I pray, I got to make sure I don't want to ever leave out Elohim, ignore, that all started with him and it all ends with him. Well, I just remember that when you're praying, like, not that we have to say, oh, dear Heavenly Father, the one who maker of heaven and earth. I used to joke about these long introductions, but then I started thinking, wait a minute, their response was, sovereign Lord, you made the heaven and the earth, and they go into all the things they were so grateful for getting out of jail and out of prison. Well, then, I'm reading along, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, Romans 1. Now, some of you are like, Romans 1? Elohim's in Romans 1? Yeah, one of the best. I remember as a new Christian when I found this verse, and I lived in California when I found this verse, so I'm looking around going, hey, everybody. Well, has anybody guessed what verse it might be? About Elohim, creator, the mighty Elohim? Romans 1:20. Fabulous verse. It says the invisible qualities of God are made visible in creation. I remember one time, I will not say what town I was in, but it was a breathtaking place, and a young friend of mine who God brought her there to work with college students. She talked about the godlessness. Nobody believes in God. They're all atheists. That nobody believes in God. And I remember turning around and looking at what was behind the school, the stunning backdrop of the mountains and the area that it was, and I thought, this alone is the declaration of the invisible qualities of God. This alone will be grounds they could be judged on having just seen all that and not acknowledging God. People always talk about, but what about people who didn't hear? Hey, they saw it every day. It always gets me crazy. I think, you get up and you breathe God's air. You look at his sunshine. You look at his world. You look at the beautiful wispy clouds that are so different from the puffy ones. You can hear the ocean. Some of you are like, I've never heard the ocean. Okay, but there are beautiful things. I look at Bing pictures all the time because the computer, they show you all the world. There are beautiful places all over the world, and every one of them are a manifest. They are a window display. Papa's, hey, he's looking at him. He is on display in creation. Say bravo Elohim the next time you see a great sunset. But what's sad about Romans 1:20, it bleeds into the rest of the chapter, which is a very painful chapter, but it's a very significant one, and all of us need to read it and know it. Romans 1. Paul says, now when you see this wonderful invisible quality of God that declares him, what did they do to the Creator in this wonderful window display? They bashed that glass down, and know what they did? They exchanged the truth of God for a lie and worshiped and served created things rather than the Creator. We worship created things rather than the Creator. There are people who make decisions about their life based on things and stuff that runs their life. We call it the God of mammon, the things we treasure more than God. It's an idol. So I thought, Elohim or idol, choice is yours. Next time you see a sunset, sunrise, or just see a beautiful tree blossoming, or looking at the snow when the moon glistens on it at night. I lived in Grand Rapids 2 years, so I got to see that. Just Elohim is peeking at you. Praise him. Next week, we're going to look at El Elyon. I have many, we're going to go through 15 names. El Elyon, the Most High God, Sovereign, probably one of my favorites. Of course, there's 2 more that I love, but anyways, I love them all. But I can't wait to get to that one. So look forward to seeing you next week. Blessings. I will make sure we post that list of the names of God. We had done it before at Thanksgiving. In fact, it's on my timeline. I'm going to clean up my timeline. You guys can go look it up. So you can start seeing the names we're going to go through. And I'll look forward to being with you next week. Praise Elohim.